Thanks. So the next presentation is a solo presentation by Lisa Thomas, who's Managing Director of Samata Capital, who's going to talk about gender lens investing. Lisa's worked across, I think, 20 countries in Africa, Asia, and Oceania in a series of development-oriented fields, including agribusiness, energy, fintech, health, and online marketplaces. Welcome, Lisa.
Imagine that you're a serial entrepreneur and you're going into an investor's office to pitch your company. You've done all the preparation, you've done the practice, you know the numbers cold, and you're cycling up your energy. You're ready to give this presentation. And you're sitting there during that introductory chit-chat, and the investor turns to you and says, "Do you have any children?" Thinking nothing of it, you say, "Yeah." So the investor gets up, walks over to the door, opens it, and says, "Thank you very much for coming in today." Ushers you out without you even being able to say anything about your company. How would you feel? This is an actual story of an entrepreneur in our pipeline. She had successfully done 2 previous companies, exited the second one, reinvested that money into a new venture, and they were getting really great traction. They were growing, they were providing products to the domestic market, they had started to export, there was just tons of demand. And so what she was looking for now was capital to be able to scale, to meet that demand, and to also reach profitability. And she had done her research on this investor. What she was doing was really aligned with what he had done before. And so she was ready to go in there and just dazzle him with everything they had already achieved and the ambitious plans that she had for their future growth. But in his mind, none of that mattered. For him, if a woman had children, she couldn't possibly be committed to growing her business. I bet you can imagine how disappointed she was. And I can see some of the women in the room, I can see them nodding to themselves a little bit, going, yeah, I've heard these stories before. And in some cases, they're saying, yeah, this has happened to me. And for the men in the room, maybe you've heard something like this and you've been shocked. But have you ever been asked this question? What seems like a simple question, but which has nothing to do with your business and has a huge impact on your future. So I hear these types of stories all the time. And they stick with me because this has also happened to me. I've been asked that question as if it's a disqualification for a job. And I've been in other similar situations where assumptions have been made about my level of ambition, commitment, or skill just because I'm a woman. And so thinking about this really gets me up in the morning. This is why I founded Samata Capital. We want to make sure that this doesn't keep happening to female entrepreneurs over and over and over again, because they have a lot of value to add. At Samata, we have the goal of providing capital and support to female entrepreneurs as well as gender diverse teams in sub-Saharan Africa. The entrepreneurs we're targeting are solving some really big challenges to make sure that people in their markets get access to both the basics, but also the aspirational. Our portfolio companies are creating real change, like Neopenda, which has created innovative medical devices specifically designed for the African markets. And Real Fruit, with its healthy snack food options, they are actually working to create the next big world-class food brand. And our portfolio includes businesses that are working to increase access to mobility by utilizing green technology. Another company is actually using data analytics and AI to really elevate other African companies. And another company is trying to build the next superfood platform. All of these companies are in a diverse set of industries. They're in different countries in East and West Africa. But the unifying element here is the fact that they all have ambitious entrepreneurial teams that are led by a female founder or gender diverse management. But why did I really even need to emphasize that last part? Well, here's what I hear in the market still. Female entrepreneurs they don't know how to take risk. They're just not ambitious enough. Number 2, they focus solely on the female consumer. And that's really just not a big enough target population. And number 3, and this is my favorite one, we just don't think investment-ready female-led companies exist. They're a myth. So let's take each one of these. So first one here, they don't take enough risk and they're not ambitious enough. In fact, the research shows that female-led companies make 2 times the amount of revenue per dollar invested for every dollar that is actually given to a male-founded company. So to me, what that says is that these women are really shooting for growth. They are ambitious, and they are taking risk. Number 2, female companies, they don't just solely focus on women. They focus on everybody. They want to build their businesses just like everybody else. But women are also half the world's population. That's a pretty big target market. And on top of that, the vast majority of purchasing decisions globally are made by women because they're making them for themselves and for their household. So really what this means is that if you're not focusing on women, you're missing a massive opportunity. And number 3, do we really need to address this? We will anyway. So what I do is I just point to our portfolio and our pipeline and the portfolio of other gender lens funds to say, no, these companies really do exist and they're doing really well. But the problem is that these views are very pervasive in the market still today. And so it's what's really led to the data that was recently published by Brighter Bridges and The Big Deal. So this is the data from Brighter Bridges. So they looked at total funding raised for early stage companies in Africa between January 2013 and May of 2021, so May of this year. And what they found was that 76% of all of that funding went to male-only teams. 21% went to gender diverse teams, yay, but only 3% went to female-only teams. And so if we put this in other terms, for every dollar that a female team raised, a male team raised 25. But we also have the data that just came out from The Big Deal. And so what they've shown is that the total funding raised this year through September 2021, so everything year to date, 84% of all that funding went to men and only 0.7%, less than 1%, went to female-only teams. So if we use that same analogy, for every dollar a female company raised, men raised 288. It's gigantic. So I know everybody in this room, you're all numbers people, and so you get this. This is a really big inequity. But I want to dig a little bit deeper and make this resonate just a little bit more. So we can all agree that raising money is hard, right? Everyone in this room has probably had to do it at some point, either for your fund or for your company. And it's like pushing a boulder up a hill, right? This is really tough. But for a male-only team, they're pushing that boulder for about a mile. That's really hard, it is. But if you're a female-only team, while the men have pushed it for a mile, you are pushing it for 25 miles. You just kind of keep going. But in that second example, you're pushing it even further, nearly 300 miles. And with women as well, because of the fact that they have lots of other responsibilities that society has placed on them, they're likely dragging along behind them all of those other things they have to do. So taking care of the kids, taking care of the household, management, taking care of elderly parents, et cetera. Just thinking about that makes me exhausted. And the thing about it, and we just heard about this in the last panel, VC has been really taking off in Africa. This is a really exciting time. But what it feels like is that boulder is becoming harder and harder to push for women. These women are really fighting to grow their businesses and to make them a success. So we need to fight just as hard to make sure that they get access to capital. But why does this even matter? You probably have seen in the news, it's been talked about a lot of these social impact statistics around why we should be funding women, why we should be closing the gap. These are just 3 of those reasons. So by funding women, we're increasing female economic empowerment, which has knock-on effects across society, right? We are reducing inequality, And actually, we're improving the health and educational outcomes for children. But guess what, guys? Your health outcomes also improve. So it actually benefits everybody. But I know that's not why you're here today. What you want to know is, what is the business case and how does this affect my bottom line? So just as a reminder, from the statistic we had earlier in the presentation, female-led companies make twice the amount of revenue per dollar invested than their male-only peers. That's really significant just on its own. But then let's look at what happens when you add women into male-only companies. Gender-diverse teams are 25% more likely to actually have above-average profits. And actually, when you get to 30% female executives at a company, they are the most likely to achieve above-average performance. That's also very significant. Another important factor in our markets is job creation. And so women will hire men, but they hire more women and they create more jobs overall than just male-only teams. And that if we take a step back and look at the bigger picture, ensuring equal access to capital for women would actually increase global GDP by 26%. Considering we're still coming out of COVID and the impact that has had, I think everyone would like a little bit more growth in GDP. So as investors, you're always looking for how you can get the edge, right? Investing in women and diverse teams is really one of the best ways that you can do this. Women are the alpha you are seeking. And at this point, if you're not looking to how you can diversify along gender lines, you're already behind. And there are lots of notable investors that are already expanding into, to focus their funds and their investments on either female-led or gender-diverse teams. We're also seeing the rise of gender lens or gender-smart funds, as they're often called. Samata is one of them. But we also have Alethea IDF, which is the first gender lens fund to close on the continent. They are making some of the most innovative investments in Africa. And a more recent example, and very prominent, is the DPI's new fund, which is nearly $1 billion, which will be put towards gender lens investing. So these are all significant, but it's not quite enough. We've got to make sure that we close that gap from where women are right now, which is 0.7% of funding, to something much, much bigger. So imagine if we could remove those barriers faster, right? We could take away 10 miles of pushing that boulder up the hill, or 100 miles, or even more in a much shorter period of time. So that's what we're going to talk about now, how everybody in this room can do something to help. So here are just 3 actions. First, invest in more female-led and gender-diverse company teams. And it's more simple than you think. You don't have to change your strategy. You just need to commit to looking at more of these companies in the market. And don't know where to find them? Okay, we can help with that. Go talk to She Loves Tech, First Check, and Future Females Invest. There are lots of accelerators, incubators, and other initiatives that are really elevating female entrepreneurs and gender-diverse teams. Number 2, go talk to your current portfolio companies. Put more women on boards and in management teams, and make sure that all of your new investee companies know that you're serious about this. You're not just pinkwashing. You want to see women in the management team and on the board. And getting to that 30% measure that I noted before, that's really key to making sure that women have influence in decision making. Once again, you don't know where to go? All right, let's give you some options. So executives in Africa, they have a significant, and they're here, by the way, if you need to go and talk to them, they have a significant initiative to ensure that women are being hired in decision-making roles. And you also have the Boardroom Africa, which has now been doing this for many years, where they are committed to matching qualified women to opportunities on boards on the continent. And number 3, invest in and promote female-led and gender-diverse fund teams. Women in decision-making roles at investment firms, which there are still very few, are actually twice as likely to invest in female founding teams. And so that's something that you can really start to think about, is how do I go from just investing in companies to looking at who is making the decisions about who's investing in those companies. And if you don't know where to go for that, talk to me about Advancing Women in Investing. We are a collaboration of 50 first-time and emerging female fund managers who are focused on Africa. We can give you some really good ideas. But we're not done yet. I'm going to give you one more idea. Everyone take out your phones. Everybody's on social media. You're on LinkedIn, you're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, when they're up. And you can use these platforms to really elevate female entrepreneurs and make them visible. This is really significant, and it's the easiest thing you can do. It doesn't take very long. It doesn't take much effort. And for the men in the room looking to do something, this can be incredibly impactful because female entrepreneurs tend to have fewer men in their networks. And that can open up a whole new set of people for them. Make an effort to connect with women. Take a minute, make an introduction, do a shout out on LinkedIn. All of these things, these small actions can take a mile or two off of one woman's journey pushing that boulder up the hill. You know the people, you know the resources, and you can do one of these things today. Do for them what someone else has done for you. Thank you. I'm happy to take questions if anyone has any, but I don't know how much time we have.
Hi, my name is Susan Payne, and I am the founder of a company called Holistic Agricultural Investments Group based in Africa. I am so frustrated by the lack of funding for female entrepreneurs that I myself am launching a fund just like yours in the first quarter of next year called the Glide Fund for Gender-Led Investing, based out of South Africa. Can you just tell us where your investments are largely based and what fees you charge? And finally, where do you find your main investors come from?
So we are focused on East and West Africa, and at the moment, just Anglophone. We hope in our second fund to be able to do Francophone as well. In terms of the fees that we charge to our LPs, you mean? So we are still in the process of fundraising. So we're doing track record investments right now, syndicating our deals. And so I'm not willing to actually share what we've included in our pitch deck to LPs. But yeah, we're still trying to fundraise, and because it's venture capital, because we're a first-time team or an emerging team, I still have 15 years worth of experience in private equity and venture capital, but as many of you know who've tried to raise a fund, if it's not in your specific thesis, it's as if your experience doesn't exist. So that's why we're building the track record. But who we're trying to talk to, essentially foundations, family offices, some of the DFIs, but this is still too risky for them. And just looking at some of the fund-to-fund strategies that are out there. So you should probably talk to Karamo Capital. They're raising a fund-to-fund specifically with a gender lens, and also Oryx Impact. Both of those are looking to invest in female-led funds. Any other questions? Thank you very much.